Good evening, everybody. I'm sorry for the late start tonight, and good evening, Just Jessup. It's been somewhat of a hectic evening trying to get some other things done, and it's just been somewhat really kind of frantic. I'm hoping I get a chance to relax now, and I've just realised there's no music. Not that it was particularly hectic music or anything like that, but I could do with some calming music just now, so let me just find the right there. A Touch of Zen is the first track. That's just what I could do with right at this moment in time. Dear. Fluffy Twiggler, yes indeed. No mic. Yes, there is a mic. You should be hearing sound. Fluffy Twiggler, are you hearing sound? I'm sending it. Oh, I don't want something else to go wrong. Yep. Okay, that's good. For the moment then, there is Mike. Thank you. Just some personal stuff which is caused must be about connection. Not at my end as far as I know. OBS says there's stuff going out. Just some personal stuff which required a lot of sorting out. I didn't even get a chance to tweet or anything that I was going to be late, so my apologies. I've got some more stuff to sort out after the stream as well, so unfortunately I can't go on longer than normal either. Yeah, a bad day. Well, a bad evening more than a bad day. Started off okay, and then just this evening went sideways. So yeah. I'm looking at this and going, do I really want to start this at the moment? I'll continue with this just from the point of view that I feel all at the moment. I haven't even had any coffee this evening. Not that it affects me at all, but it somehow at this moment in time I am talking 19 to the dozen. So, Fluffy Twiglet, Just Jessup, how have your days been? Yeah, I am going to be able to watch Train Simulator after this because he's not broadcasting that tonight. Let's see if I can make this head a little bit brighter. Without making it too much brighter. I kind of want it to be slightly dimmer than this side. Kind of like my brain feels at the moment, slightly dim. Exilian, good evening, welcome. Oh yes, you had the day. I kind of wish I had the day off now. But you've been working as well. Old LH, good evening. Old LH, welcome to the belated stream this evening. For those of you that have just joined, my apologies for being late. Personal matters took over completely, and I was rushing to try and get through those in time to at least be able to stream this evening. And I'm hoping the nice calming music that's on is going to calm me down a little bit. My insides are jumping all over the place. That's figuratively speaking rather than actually in practice. Or at least I hope that's the case. It feels like they're jumping all over the place, but... Oh, haven't you seen the kitten before? Okay. It looks better now that it's got the other half of the head on. Okay, this stripe that's in the middle wants to be a little bit darker, but not that dark, so we will come back to that. I'm feeling a bit calmer. It's gradually calming down as I'm doing this. Now the shading on this side of the head is going to be a lot more subtle than that on that side of the head. That was a bit less subtler than I wanted it to be anyway, but such is, we deal with it. Art makes everything better. Well, it makes some things easier, or makes you forget about other things. I don't know about making them better, but well, actually, yes, I can think of a way it would make them better, but it's a way that's not going to happen. But just doing art and enabling you to relax is good. What I'm doing at the moment, again, as I usually mention, when I'm looking, as I am now, I'm looking at the OBS window, which lets me take a big step backwards without actually taking a big step backwards. I've made the head a bit too wide actually, but actually I haven't made the head a bit too wide. I've put the ear tufts in the wrong place. It's alright, we'll move them a bit closer. They're actually closer in, around back here on both sides, which gives the impression that the head is actually narrower than it really is. These are the details that you should see before you start something, not afterwards. So what I'm trying to do shading wise on here now is what I should have tried to do on that side, which is be a little bit more gentler about it. So what I'm trying to do is shape the skull a little bit, and by the shading that I'm applying, so it should look like this is slightly indented. Not that it actually is, but it's more flat, and this, so it comes in and sort of scoops out a little bit. I'm exaggerating it with the tool that I'm looking at here, but that's kind of the idea that I'm after, which then narrows the look of the face down a little bit. So now I need to do is, this is relatively bright down here, I need to sort of fade it in. Otherwise this, and just above the eyes as well, otherwise this look is going to look too dark. Sort of the eye ridge across there, which is quite bright. So these, just even a few additional scratches can change the brightness quite a bit. That is a bit too much in my face. Let's turn it down a little, or twist it down a little. There we go. I don't have red spots before my eyes now, or I won't when they disappear after a little bit. So I'm trying to decide what colour they are, the spots. They're more of an orangey colour. Yeah. Now that's looking a bit better. That's starting now to lose its really bright look, as this has increased in value, in brightness. This doesn't look quite as glaringly white as it did. I've got a sort of a, don't know if you can see it, kind of like a, almost a bird shape. So the eyebrow, sort of brow area is sort of highlighted slightly, which looks quite good. In fact, it's really weird because I'm looking at that and it's looking orangey red on the monitor. So maybe I've got some colour interference going on there, or just reflections is causing the colour to shift slightly. Interesting. Okay, so we need to do a little bit more around here. The colour is a little bit too uneven. LLH, thank you very much, and Moobot, thank you for reminding me. Just as he's his, he, it, her, Moobot. Sounds like a cow. Reminds me, of course, yes, that's just another few hours left in the shop before that coupon code expires. 7 hours. So I do encourage anybody to take a final look. Well, I want you to carry on looking, but a look, make sure there's nothing there that you might be interested in while a coupon code is still valid. I have changed the postage a little bit in there, so if you were previously looking at things thinking international postage is a bit pricey, I have made a small change there to use a standard post, which should help in costs a little bit. And even if you're not interested in buying anything, I encourage you to take a look, because soul traffic is good. Pass it on to other people as well, anybody you feel like. Now I just need to make this is a little bit too obvious a transition. I just want to smooth out some of the transition a little bit, just so what I'm effectively doing is just extending it out so I don't have that sharp edge that appeared to be there before. So I just want it to be a little bit more subtle. That one there. Yeah, I want the picture to be subtle. I'm not being subtle. Go look at my shot, yeah. I want to curve that, so I need to increase this just a touch. Yeah. This the OBS camera is great for this. It's a bit like working with a graphics tablet. If you ever work with a graphics tablet, it's kind of what I'm doing at the moment. It's kind of like do it here and see the results up there, because some of these changes are quite subtle to me here that I can't really see them. Something there. Oh, okay. Which means that area just inside of it there wants to be. Just tweaked a little. Like that. Now I've got another area here once then for needs to be tweaked just a little bit. Yeah. One of the things I'll have to watch here is that I don't keep tweaking things and just increasing bits of brightness like I'm doing here. It just doesn't look quite, it looks like the wrong shape. And I've got a bright spot, relative bright spot there, then it's dark around here, which is affecting the shape a little bit. One of the things I'll have to be careful of is I don't sort of make all this bright or brighter and then this bit doesn't look right and I end up chasing my tail, so to speak, until it gets too bright overall. Because there is a danger of that happening if you're not careful. And that is one advantage of having this camera, it's helping me see that, which if I'm looking here locally I wouldn't necessarily see what is a relatively subtle change but is enough to impact it overall. some ways I'm quite amazed at I mean, I'm making sort of just one or two scratches and it's making a, you know, quite a, to me, a noticeable difference on the image I'm looking at. Just adding in, you know, literally sort of 1, 2, 3 scratches has brightened that area up a fraction. And up here needs something. Okay, I'll come back to that. I'm going to do something down here. This is now way darker than it should be. Now, it's kind of like the centre line of your foot. You know, the hair's coming out from one side, sort of. But it's almost like there's a skull ridge down there. I don't know if it actually is, but all the way down the nose, but it kind of looks like that on the references that I'm looking at. MTS Wood, good evening. Indeed it is. Indeed it is. It does look like that, doesn't it? There's a couple of the reference pictures that I'm looking at. Is kind of the cat's walking, you know, paw in front. And it's being taken like that as though it's coming towards you slowly. Thank you very much for that. Are you broadcasting? I was going to say this evening. I suppose it's later today for you, MTS Wood. I didn't get a chance to watch you last night. I saw you doing some stuff. Unfortunately, I was just otherwise engaged. I just caught you. I think you were polishing something at the time. It was a three pump vase that you got on the lathe. You got the headstock in it. Sorry, the headstock, the pointy bit with the rotating bit, not the drive, the other end. At the time. I used to know the terms for all of these things, but I can't remember them now. So what I'm trying to do is shade it such that there looks to be a shape in here. So one of the first things is this edge transition is rather sudden, so I need to make it a little bit graduated till I get to about, well, a quarter of an inch further over, and then I gradually lighten it up again to on this side. So I'm creating kind of like a shadow line. Yeah, I must get round to doing a few highlights, and there was would be a lovely one if I can remember to do it, where just a couple of nights ago now Junior had visited. He was sat here, just here to one side of this picture, and by pure coincidence I looked at him just as he looked at me, and then we both looked down at the picture, and we literally followed each other's eyes down. It was thinking about it afterwards, it would have looked absolutely hilarious. I must try and find that one. So it's sort of like weekend show. Yeah, you're in the States though, so your morning is my afternoon. So I tend to be somewhat occupied these days on weekends. Yeah, it just pure coincidence, but it was that. I must remember. Okay, and Luciat, thank you very much for following. That's most kind of you. Anybody who's watching and isn't aware of whom MTS Wood is, I highly encourage you to check him out. Despite the fact that he therefore professes to have only 7 streams under his belt, or under his lathe, you wouldn't know it. He got what looks like an extremely professional setup with 2 cameras running, and pointed at his lathe and what he's doing. He's already got a wireless microphone, and he's an extremely good host on the chat. And he not only does that, he does woodwork at the same time on a spinning lathe. With wood turning at quite fast rates, and when he gets the big chisels out, wood starts coming off really nicely, but coming off quite fast. Thanks, Matt, for that. That's kind of you to allow me to do that. So I highly recommend you check him out. It's absolutely fascinating to watch how a block of wood gets turned into a vase. Or bowls for that matter, although I haven't seen you do any bowls yet, Matt. And if you've only done 7 streams so far, you are going to do really well. I don't particularly have any use for a doorstop 3D bloke. No, actually, unfortunately, I don't have any use for 2 Xeons either. I suspect they're worth more than the Mac bit is. Oh, did it turn pens? Wow, that's. I was about to say that's quite. I mean, they're tiny, isn't it? So it's quite fiddly work. It's the same. It's just a small. Well, I kind of think of miniature working as more requiring more skill, but it doesn't really, does it? Because you're working to the same tolerances, really. But. Thank you, Matt, for that. I'm trying to think. What we've just done is we did the pyrography, doing this. I can't remember what I do next. It's probably more a case of what I feel like doing. So we may be trying to save some money at the moment. So what would be next? Might do some carving because I've got some wood. So I might go out of sequence and do some carving. Just because if I do the punch craft, I'll probably have to buy some more coloured thread. and to do the jewellery I'll have to buy some more rings. So we might go back to and do some carving, since I do have some spare wood. Maybe a paper, rather large paperweight. Unfortunately, is 3D's machine. Yep. Indeed, I think we probably would, Matt. Indeed, I think we probably would. Yeah. I've only ever really seen pen turning done on little miniature lathes more than anything else. So, but it kind of struck me as a pen barrel is just a smooth pen barrel. So whilst you're using different woods, you know, and for different colour effects and things, it kind of strikes me as just being a smooth barrel. Whereas the sort of stuff you do, you've got the bumps, the textures, the rings, the profiles and things you can do. So I must admit, I kind of like lots of crafts, and I suppose I do get bored easily, which is why I do lots of crafts. Yeah, I suppose it would be if you yeah. If you're starting off with square blanks and then inlaying them and then rounding them off, yeah. And I suppose there's a heck of a lot of skill in the fact that ultimately a pen barrel is quite a thin profile. I'm going to say carving, but you know, turning when it's done. I'm being just a little bit finicky, detailed with this at the moment, just to try and get a really subtle shading involved in this. Just so I build the shape I'm looking for. $60 mm, 6 centimeters. 6 centimeters. Pen blanks are 6 centimeters. Or are your blanks 6 centimeters? I'm going to say it's quite a large blank for a pen. It'll waste a lot of material. Can you afford to recover from a mistake? Yes, you can. To both questions. It really depends on the level of mistake. And there are different ways of dealing with it. If I've made a mistake where I've made something like this area here, originally I made it too light. The brightness is in contrast to everything that's around it. So this looked light, really light, because the area around it was dark. And in fact, when I first did it, this half of the head wasn't there at all. So as I add lighter shades around it, this starts to look not as light. So if I accidentally make something lighter than I wanted it to do, one way of fixing it is to lighten everything that's around it. So you just raise everything else up in lightness, and then your too bright area doesn't look as bright as it did. That's one way of doing it. It's kind of the same as you would if you were carving. If you accidentally dug in a little bit in one area, you can just reprofile it, take a bit of material off the rest so that dig vanishes. And this is kind of the same sort of idea. The other thing I can do is I do have some black ink which is matched-ish to the black that's used as a background here. So I can, for example, I've got a chip missing there. You can just see that white spot. I could put a little, and I mean a really tiny drop of ink on top of that, and it will go black. The only thing is it doesn't, for something as tiny as that I get away with it, especially as I'm going to scratch over the top. If I wanted to try and blank that whole thing out, I could put black ink over it, but what would happen is you still see all the scratches underneath, you still see the underlying texture of it, so it wouldn't actually hide it. What I'd have to do is put, do some more scratching over the top, but still in certain lights I'd still catch the edges of the of scratches that have been filled in with black, but it's a V shape essentially. So as the light hits one side of a black shiny surface, of course it's going to reflect, so you will actually still see it. So it's kind of 50-50 really. You can afford some mistakes, and you can fix some mistakes, but as those mistakes get larger, like if I gouged a long streak across here, I basically couldn't do anything about it. I could coat it with black, but it'll still stand out. And at which point I file it in the round profile and start again. But generally speaking, I like to work as much as I can with things like this quite lightly. So I start with a really dark image, and as I'm doing now, I'm just brightening it up, so that way I'm less likely to make a mistake. $60mm. Oh yeah, no, I was thinking 60mm, 6 centimeters just seemed. I mean, if you're talking about a pen, I mean, well, I suppose it depends on how big the pen is. I kind of think of a pen barrel as being about 2 centimeters, so you're losing sort of 60% of your material. Oh, about 18. Okay. That seems a bit more in the ballpark, but I know so I do work in inches over here. I'm not that young that I only understand millimeters. I still, well, it's kind of odd. I can inches, half inches, quarters, but when you start going to 8, 16, 7, 30 seconds, then I start having to do maths to work out quite what that is. Indian ink, yes. Well, this, I don't actually know what the scraperboard itself is coated with black Indian ink, and I've just got blue here. I'm just seeing if it's the blue one doesn't give me an indication. Where's the black one? No. Is that the black one? Yeah, that's the black one. The cats have been crawling all over the top of my paints. I'm kind of assuming, because this is I was about to say this is from the same manufacturer. It isn't. Scraperboard is made by about 3 different manufacturers who do things slightly differently, of course, and they probably use slightly different coloured inks for that reason. But this is the black one. It doesn't mention anything, but I do know that, you know, shall we say traditionally, this would be black Indian ink. But you can also use the inks. I mean, I'm doing this in black and white, but what I am thinking of doing is applying ink to the eyes in this, not the whole image, but I think just the eyes. And we were discussing the other night whether to make them a piercing blue or a yellow orange, because when you apply colour, you can get almost a completely different looking image. So this was just had green straight out the bottle, actually, applied to do the grass, and it kind of just throws the whole thing into a different perspective. And I was really surprised when I did this as to just how much effect it had. I'm kind of hoping when I do the eyes it has a similar effect on here. How the heck did I get into it all? Yes, you can. I tend not to rub my fingers over it at the moment because I'd get grease marks, which you can polish off, but you get grease marks on this. It's a bit like rubbing your fingers over, I don't know, something like about 1,000 grit ember paper, something like that, or 1600 grade, to give you sort of an indication. Or I guess a rough sanded piece of wood. You can feel the sanding texture in there. What I keep meaning, well, what I've got to do at some point is buy some spray varnish to go over the top of this, and the 3 others that I've got, so that it protects you, so you don't accidentally scratch them, which is the main worry. So how did I get all into this? Well, 3 or 4 years ago, maybe a bit. I can't remember exactly. When I was at school, that's 40 odd years ago now, I kind of was interested in art, but never really did anything with it. But about somewhere between 3 and 5 years ago now, I can't remember exactly when, I decided I wanted to build a PC, the PC that I'm actually doing the broadcasting on. I've been building them before. I've built at least 3 or 4 of them. But this one I decided I wanted to be different. And I wanted to be different. I was going to paint the case. And a long time ago, I did try airbrushing, but I tried it with basically the wrong equipment. And I knew I'd done it with the wrong equipment, which was quite useful. So I went out and bought the airbrushing stuff. And I airbrushed the case with... It's not super professional looking, like the sort of stuff 3D Block there does as a professional, but I think it's quite a decent effort, especially for almost the first thing I airbrushed. But then I just sort of got really into airbrushing, and then what came after the airbrushing? Well, it basically things just developed from there. I probably was watching some airbrushing, and then I saw somebody do something like let's say the Scraperboard. It didn't happen in this sequence, but I thought, hey, that looks interesting, and just tried it. And so that's how I've got into the airbrushing, the carving, the Scraperboard, the punchcraft. Cross stitch I started because my wife wanted a particular picture done, and she bought the kit for it, but she'd claims she doesn't have the patience to do cross stitching, so I did that. But I've always been interested in pixel based art, so that kind of was just an extension of that, and I just carried on. But as sort of just as I've discovered, I've just been interested in doing anything creative. Yeah, the snakeskin stuff. Yeah, that's quite a good way of doing it. Or you can get plastic meshing that's used on things like construction sites as well. That does it quite well. Yeah, 3D bloke there is a graphic. Well, he was a graphics designer, I guess, but he's an airbrush artist. He's playing with oil paints at the moment, and he's reverted back to the hairy things. My wife doesn't do. Oh well, my wife doesn't do any art at all. She collects or collected pocket dragons, and one of the images was of pocket dragons, and so she wanted me to, because I knew how to knit and sew, you see, because I'd done that when I was younger. It was, you can do this. You can't say no, really. But I actually enjoyed it, so I now have cases full of cross-stitch things to do. I just don't do them on stream, because whilst this is slow, cross-stitch is even slower. Tell you what, if you like textures, things like the jewellery stuff, you'd love to do chainmail, because this sort of thing, well, chains like this, I spent hours just playing with the things, because of course the rings, so they're rounded, but they're just so fluid and smooth that I just end up playing for hours. I get, I can do, oh, that's finished now, and I'll just start like, doing this with it, and sort of 20 minutes later I go, oops, I better get on with something else. I think my favourite one for doing that with at the moment, because I haven't finished it yet, is this one, a bit of dragon scale. But this one is super flexible, sort of. It's got a limit to it, but it's super sort of smooth and tactile to play with. And I can lose time with that piece. But my wife, she doesn't do it now. I'm hoping we might be able to persuade her. She used to make candles. She'd create. She'd well, do one of two. She'd either create sort of take a household ornament, for example, create a mold from it, and then mold candles and then paint them, or take something like a pillar candle or a cone candle and put paint on there, sort of abstract painting. And we were at the time trying to find a way for her to do candle dipping, so that she could actually carve candles, but we didn't actually manage to do that quite well. No, I'm not into the chainmail armour type stuff, just the jewellery. And whilst that dragon scale looks quite spectacular, that's got 200 rings, 400 rings in just that small amount, and you could imagine a full bracelet, well, a cuff of that is going to be approaching sort of 800 rings. So you can imagine if you're going to try and do that as a full chainmail suit, that would be pricey. Dear. But yeah, that would be something that would be worth getting enchanted by elves, definitely. Now, if you want it chainmail, like armour type stuff these days, it's a hell of a lot cheaper to to go buy machine knit stuff, rather than handcrafted. I need to bring this in a little bit. It's, yeah, I need to narrow the darker area down. Ilmo24, thank you very much for the follow. That's very kind of you. Yeah, it's really manpower intensive. I mean, it's not using as complicated a weave as I was doing there. In fact, see if I've got it. Yeah, it's that one. The stuff that, well, in Europe, the weave that they use is this one, or used to use, shall we say, for chainmail armour, is this one. It's called 4-in-1 or European 4-in-1, and it would actually be a lot looser than this. This is quite, well, relatively speaking, is quite tight compared with the armour stuff. And there's, I think, just making that is about an hour and a half, an hour. So if you can imagine trying to do that for a 6-foot person, then it would take a long time. And of course, what they used to do was rivet them then as well to seal them. These aren't. These are just closed manually, you know, butt closed, if you like. They're not actually fastened in any way. They're just pushed together, and that's it. Whereas obviously on armour they used to overlap them and then rivet the thing, so that would take even longer. So I'll come down here and the transition is a little bit sharp. Okay. Oh, that's funny, 3D. You can run H1Z1. You can run sort of all these fancy games at ultra high resolution, but the thing that the one game, the high end game, the really popular game that sort of, you know, runs your machine flat and actually drags it down is Farming Simulator. I like that. That's funny. I mean, I know it's probably true, but it just strikes me as being really funny. Well, at least if there's a game's going to do it, you've picked a decent one to tax your PC on. if you do you play Euro Truck Simulator as well, free? Because I suspect that'd be another one which might drag your machine down quite a bit. There seems to be quite a bit of, well, I think it's probably, I was going to say, I don't know if it's the physics, which isn't fantastically good in those, but the sort of, there seems to be more physics in something like Farming Simulator than there is in some of the FPS games. Yeah. Well, yeah, spin tires is seems to have had quite a lot of optimization done in it, just so that it can actually do all that mud physics and deformation and things. Okay, that's not looking. Yeah, it's a bit off centre, but too bad. Yeah, it is, because that's. I mean, I know. There's in theory quite a lot of modding around for it, but it's no real substitute for actual game inherent game content. Because it's one, I mean, it is one hell of a challenging game to play, or it looks like it is. I mean, I've never actually tried it, and I'm kind of reluctant to do so because I want to be able to drive it using a wheel and actually sort of first person in the cab and drive it. You know, put that on there. Track IR so you can actually look around, then it would be absolutely awesome, I think. Okay, Matt, thank you very much for dropping in. If you're streaming or going to be streaming, then I will almost certainly drop in tonight. But thank you very much for dropping in and having a chat this evening. Yeah, and there's only limited replay on it, isn't it? I mean, once you've kind of found the best routes and things, then okay. I mean, it's mud, it's never going to do exactly the same thing twice, but it does, you know, it doesn't strike me as I mean, with things like Farming Simulator, you know, you start, you get bigger and better machinery. Well, I suppose there's a limited amount of that. You have to go out and discover the things. But it would be nice, for example, every time you delivered a set of logs, you got some money for it or something, and you bought better trucks or better mud handling or something like that. It would be nice. Okay, Matt, then I shall look forward to hearing how the art show went. So that'll be Thursday, I guess. The right eye looks strange. Are you talking about the black area there, or are you talking about this edge? If you're talking about the black area, it's kind of reflection, black area reflection, and the white probably wants a little bit whiter now. That stuff's around it, but it's you're kind of looking at a reflection of trees or whatever it is that the cat's around, and also the light source is sort of up here, so its eye is kind of its forehead and brow is kind of shadowing the top of its eye. Yeah, might do something about it later on. Eyes are a really tricky thing. Not getting them wrong is the key thing. I don't want to overdo it at this stage. As you say, we might take away some of that black area a little bit later on. But I'm sort of when I did that, I looked at one particular reference image where the cat's really staring at you, and that was kind of how it appeared. And so I'm just replicating that to start with. Once I've got the rest of the face in, I can take another look at some of the details like that, and maybe we'll tweak it. But thanks for mentioning it. Yeah. Well, something like that free, yeah, would be great, just so there is some form of progression. Because at the moment you kind of just go out, discover the truck, and you can almost do. I think there's a small Land Rover type thing in the game, isn't there, where if you use that, you can almost just go out and discover everything. Mind you, I know you have to find the Land Rover, but there. Yeah. So are you going to stream anything tonight, Free? Or are you having another night off? I am fiddling with tiny little bits at the moment. Cocky75, thank you very much for following. That's kind of you. Are you still waiting for the HDMI? Sorry, the DVI adapter. Okay. It's just that there's Matt's not streaming tonight. The other Matt Pendleton's not streaming. Well, he's not streaming Train Simulator tonight, and Wednesday seems to be a quiet night for streamers all round, and there's probably nothing to watch after my stream finishes. Okay. I still need to do some work in this area, lighten it up very slightly and subtly, because the shape of the head looks a little bit off just around there, and a little bit around, just around this area here. Again, just to establish a little bit of shape, because this area is, and I might push it down a little bit more, is slightly concaved. It's sort of the temples on your head which sort of dig in slightly, and it's the same sort of area on the cat. So I kind of want to make that just stand out a little bit more. It'll help when I come in to do the cheekbone, which comes down here, of course, just around there, on both sides, and it's sort of a continuation of it around the eye. And at some point, I need to move these ear, these ear tufts on both sides. Actually should be a bit further in, and I missed that. I've done them too far towards the ear, so they need to be just probably about here, and that thins the face. It's on the same on this side actually. They probably want to come out to about here, so it's just probably making a case of making a few scratches that make it obvious without actually doing too much, because I don't want this very much lighter. It's quite a dark area, but I think probably, well, tomorrow next thing is going to be to start working down the face to fill in this area here on both sides, before we then branch out and do the shoulders and into what would be the chest area and the start of the front paws. Brown Coat Captain, hello and welcome. You unfortunately caught me quite close to the end. I've been occasionally dropping in and watching you doing your pyrography and the community image that you're doing at the moment. Unfortunately I haven't had a lot of time to watch it, but I've seen you doing that. So guys, those of you that are watching, it's a veritable feast of streamers this evening. Brown Coat Captain there doing who does pyrography. Don't actually know Brown Coat Captain if you do anything else. I'm not sure I've seen you do anything else. I think you do, but I don't know off the top of my head. So if you feel like mentioning it in the chat, please go ahead. Scary games and Portal 2. I'm not necessarily into scary games myself. helps if I actually type in chat. Which reminds me, I must change the command structure a little bit. There you go. Ty Martin Art. Okay, Brown Coat Captain. Definitely worth watching you though. I mean, some of the stuff you're doing is quite quite detailed and amazing stuff. What's he doing art-wise then? Of course, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get the adverts. Oh, it's sculpting. Oh, okay. That's supposed to be muted. Thank you very much, Twitch. 60 FPS in Portal 2. That 160. That's fast. Not that I'm aware of, max out the cake, but you know, that's the one thing with hair, it just kind of does its own thing. I can't see him at the moment, I'm still getting the adverts. Ah, okay. Yeah, okay, that's a good thing. Yeah. But yes, good timing on that. However, LDLH, because unfortunately it's 10 o'clock and I do need to do other stuff tonight. That's what caused the stream. Some personal stuff caused the stream to be late to start, and I do need to get back to doing that. So I am going to stop at this point. We'll carry on with more with this tomorrow. What I'm going to do is give Moobot a little kick, and just remind everybody about the shop. I did actually change the postage, so if anybody was interested in stuff and thought the international postage particularly was a little expensive, I have just downgraded the postage a little bit, which might make it a bit more easier for people. So feel free to take a look, pass on the link to anybody. The intention with the shop is to help pay for some of the art materials, so it's going to a good cause. Me, I'm a good cause. That's completely thrown me out, you know, saying that to me, because I'd pick up on it and make comment if somebody else said exactly the same thing. What I'm also going to do is see if there's anybody that's watching that isn't following, then I do of course encourage you to follow me. Why not? Because especially if you're watching, why not follow? But anyway, that's up to you. I'll mention that in a second, max out the cake. But if you just like the notifications, you can follow me on Twitter @ZeragonArt. Details of that are below the stream window, and they will shortly be on the end plate. If you'd just like to try and catch me tomorrow, hopefully the stream will be on time, 8 PM UK time, 1900 hours UTC, GMT, same thing, or about 2 hours ago, but tomorrow. The black paper is, in this particular case, is called Scraperboard. Max out the cake. What it is cardboard, China clay, and then Indian ink over the top. And you scratch off the Indian ink to reveal the China clay that's underneath. The reason for wearing the gloves is this is black matte. You get oil on your fingers, on your skin. If you start touching the board with oil, you get fingerprints on it. Whilst they'll polish off, when I'm scraping little bits of black ink off. If I then start rubbing it off with my hands, the oil on your fingers and the black ink makes your fingers dirty, but equally you start to push it into the grooves and you make them grey rather than white. You change the colour. Can be a useful technique sometimes, but if you're doing it inadvertently, it's a bit of a pain in the neck, and it does get dirty. As you can see, these were white gloves. The light is whitening them out a bit more, but these are getting quite dirty and to the point where I should be thinking about getting a new pair. Okay, couple of quick things. I'll show you a couple of quick wood carvings then, but I do need to go. The last wood carving that was done, 3D Pussycat. So the light is in the wrong place to show carving, but this was done in hand with a knife. My first one ever, so that's not so bad. Yeah, I probably could wash them, max out the cake, but they're cotton gloves. They're not very robust, and they'd probably break apart very easily. And the carving before that was of a dragon here. So if I just shade the light a little bit, a light set up for doing the scraper board more than showing off carving. So unfortunately that needs to be it, guys. I mean, if you next time you pop in, if you come in a bit earlier, Max, at the cake, then and ask, I'm quite happy to show you some more of the other stuff. I don't. Yeah, I've only done about one other piece of carving, but there's pyrography and everything else as well. So quite happy to do that a little bit earlier on. Okay, guys. Thank you very much. Hope I'll see you again tomorrow. I'll remind you about the shop, but because there's about 6 hours left now before the introductory offer runs out. Might be of use, might not, but there you go. Thank you all. Hope I'll see you again in the studio in the future. Bye bye.